time to get started here. And with that, I want to welcome everyone to today's session. My name is Mike. I am with Clear Admit, great resource for those who are applying to business school each year. If you have not checked this out yet, clearadmit.com. Again, it's a great place to go to get some advice, some great content and resources on applying to business school. So come and check us out as you're going through the process. Enough about us. Today we have a great panel. I want to leave plenty of time to get through the content for today. And today's panel will be led by Danielle Richie, who is with the UNC Business School, who is our admissions director here, who we will have a panel of plenty of great folks representing UNC Kenan-Flagler. Danielle, I'll let you introduce the rest of the panel and I will pass it over to you.
Great, thanks, Mike. Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to be here for today's webinar on pursuing an MBA with a non-business background. I'm curious, for those that are in the room attending, what your business background is in, whether it's academically or currently professionally. So would love for you to type in the chat box and share your background a little bit so we can get to you. So nonprofit, great, thanks, Jacob. All right, so as Mike mentioned, my name is Danielle Richie and I oversee the full-time MBA admissions team at UNC Kenan-Flagler Business School in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Go Heels. I have about at least 13 years of experience in admissions and have been given an amazing opportunity to evaluate over thousands of applications from around the world. I like to think that I've seen it all based on files that I have read, but there are always a handful of candidates that surprise me every year. You'd be surprised at some of the things that people write in their essays or just, during their interview, what they respond with. But I like to be caught off guard. I like to continue to learn. I like to be challenged. So this job is truly amazing. And I get to meet with all of you as well. But today's session is an important one. As a non-business business major myself, I'm an advocate for those who want to pursue an MBA that do not come from a traditional background. A lot of candidates think, okay, well, I don't come from business, I'm not going to be admissible, and you tend to silo yourself. The first thing that I want everyone to be aware of is that there's no such thing as a non-traditional background for an MBA. This is a very versatile degree. And we see applicants from all different sectors. So similar to Jacob, we see nonprofit, we see creative, we see private, we see public. We also see a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of folks that are in family business. So if there's anything that you take away today, I would love for you to think about your type of professional experience that you have instead of corporate experience or academic experience that you don't have. It's important that you focus on that today. So let's go ahead and get started, because I don't think you want to hear from me today, because we have an amazing group of panelists that are present, and we have groups of students that are currently pursuing their MBA. We have a career coach, and we also have our faculty member and assistant dean of the MBA program. And I would love for them to now go ahead and introduce themselves. Over to Shri.
Cool. Thanks again, Danielle. Welcome, everyone. My name is Shri Ram Venkatraman. I go by Shri. It's just easier. I'm the assistant dean of the full-time MBA program, in which my responsibilities entail pretty much anything that involves the full-time MBA program. I have some input into the decision-making process. I have a wonderful team. Danielle, definitely a key member of our team. She's a gatekeeper for everyone coming into our program. So she's incredibly important, okay? In terms of just keeping in consistent with the theme of today's discussion, myself included, I have no prior background in business, academic training in business. My background, undergraduate degree was in engineering, then decided to pursue a master's in applied math, computer science, did economics for a while, and then decided to be an academic, and here I am. I'm housed in the marketing group and love what I do. I wouldn't trade it for anything else. I keep getting older year by year, but the students always keep getting younger year by year. So that keeps me feeling young, at least on a yearly basis. So looking forward to getting everyone else's perspectives as well.
I'll go next. I'm Gabriella. I am a second year here at Kenan-Flagler. And prior to business school, I did my undergrad. I double majored in journalism and government, so nothing related to business. I hadn't taken a math class in 10 years. So if you're like me, you're in the right place. I spent the last 6 years kind of working at a global PR firm where I specialized in issues of corporate sustainability and issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I'll keep it brief and we'll talk more in a bit.
Great. I think I'll go next. Hi, I'm Omar Howard. I was a liberal arts major at the University of Richmond. I majored in leadership studies. If you ask me what leadership is, I'll tell you, you know it when you see it. So actually, after I went to my undergrad, I worked in real estate for a little bit, but I dabbled around in a lot of different things because I was actually a football player in college. And so I pursued the dream. That dream was short-lived, unfortunately, but then I went on to work with the Commonwealth of Virginia. I worked with the UNC football office. I worked with Chick-fil-A. So definitely not a traditional business background, not even an academic background, really. I didn't really get heavy into the academics until getting here. But yeah, I'll leave more of the conversation for later, but I'll pass it on to Chad.
Great, thank you. My name is Chad Collins. I'm the Associate Director of Career and Leadership, and basically what that means is that I'm a career coach for people really focused, or students really focused on technology and operations. I did my undergraduate at University of Rochester, double majored in psychology and religion. Nobody was really jumping out of the woodwork to give me a job in those two things. So did about 1.5 years of different things, really weird jobs, went back, got my master's degree in college student personnel administration. Then in 2004, started in career advising and career coaching. It's my 17th year of doing that. I spent 15 years at UNCG and UNC on the undergraduate side doing career advising, and I'm just over 2 years in the MBA program, and love the students and love working with them. But yes, I don't have a business background either.
But fun fact, Chad actually is in my old office. So we have shared now an office officially, and we're both from upstate New York. And we're both, well, I'm assuming Buffalo Bills fans. So it's exciting to have so many common interests, but also I hope what you took away just now is that all of us come from different backgrounds, but we're all a part of the MBA program. Whether you're studying academically, you're a staff member, or faculty member. So we all have our own personalities and experience, and it's something that we celebrate here. So would love now to get started with Omar and Gabriella. Choosing to invest your time and money and energy in pursuit of a graduate business education, as you know, is a decision that requires a lot of self-reflection, and there's a lot of things to think about. So what made you decide to pursue your MBA?
I'll go ahead and kick us off. So I mentioned I worked in public relations before this. And so oftentimes you would get clients coming to you of like, it's Climate Week or it's Veterans Day and we want to make news. And so you find yourself kind of reverse engineering a business strategy to meet like whatever their obscure comms objective is. And so I found like I was going to the business units kind of trying to figure out like what's an attainable target, but like could you actually achieve it? And so like could you hire this many veterans? What would it take and things like that? And so I realized like these were exciting challenges. And that's where the real change was kind of happening. Again, I specialized in DE&I and sustainability. And so I kind of have this idea of making the world better through business. And so that was a really exciting place to be at. But I realized like I lacked kind of the fundamental understanding that I needed to have some of those conversations and to really do it. And so I knew that if I wanted to pivot into one of those roles, I needed more skills and expertise. And while I probably could have taken an online course or things like that, as I researched and kind of looked into it more, I realized the full-time format gives you access to more networking opportunities, more career support, and kind of a guidance that I think I needed to make that pivot in a way that I probably couldn't have just coming from that journalism background. And so that's kind of what led me again to like lots of soul searching, is really like sitting with it and then kind of suddenly pulling the trigger and completing all the applications. But that's been on my path. Omar, you want to share yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gabriella. So for me, it's kind of, you can pull it down to 3 buckets. The first was financially driven. I think post-MBA grads get anywhere between a $50,000 bump to, anywhere up to the $100,000 bump, which will probably end up being my case. But it was also, the second one was, I didn't feel like I was fulfilling my potential. I had lived my whole life as an athlete first and a student second, and everything was kind of tied to my athletic ability. And so once I ceased being an athlete and my career had, come to an end, I was trying to have that soul searching moment, kind of what Gabriella was alluding to, of, what am I going to do now? What do I want to be? Who am I going to be? How am I going to contribute? And that kind of leads me to the third point, is that I thought I was wasting my potential, not only for myself, but for contributing back to society. And I thought, like, how can I put myself in a position where I could, have a role or get the knowledge that I need to fully prepare myself for the real world and contributing as much as I can to society. So it kind of came down to money, potential, trying to fulfill that and, get better knowledge base.
Great. So it sounds like you both were thinking of similar things, but also different in how you approach to applying to the business school. So what were some of the things that you took into consideration before applying? Did you fear that you would be perhaps maybe denied or dinged, that your application potentially lacked quant coursework or corporate experience compared to maybe other applicants in the pool? I'm going to kick this over to Omar.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick us off. So absolutely, I was, looking at my resume and, the lack of, quantitative, coursework in undergrad. I did minor in business, but, it's very superficial. That coupled with the lack of coherent career path. And on top of that, I didn't have what I would say stellar grades, very mediocre grade point average coming out of college. All of that contributed to my, thinking that, I really don't know if I'll be able to make it anywhere, honestly. When I was applying, I, like many of you, I did all the research, looked at kind of what the average GPAs were, the average career lengths, what those people did beforehand. And I seriously, I looked at mine and I was like, there's no way I'm going to get in. So I tried really hard to maximize my GMAT score, because that was like the one place I was like, I think that's one thing I can fix now. But other than that, there's a lot of I'm not going to belong. I'm not going to be able to, meet the requirements to kind of get into the gate, so to speak. So there was certainly that kind of fear of not being able to fit in and not make it there with my background.
And for me, I had similar things. I definitely tried to lean into the GMAT because it was the one place that I could work on now and show. And I took it twice. And because I felt like you could show that if I put my, if I set my sights on something and I worked hard, I can improve, because that's what a student is. And can I grow with this? So I kind of had no fear of taking it multiple times just to show kind of that continued growth. I thought that would help me. But then I also kind of realized that everyone that's getting an MBA is getting it to learn these skills. We're going to be taught it. I don't need to try to take as many courses and understand it before I get in. That's what I'm going to be paying for with the degree. So what makes me different? How can I add value to the cohort? And that's what I prioritized in my application, of the unique experiences that I had, because so much of it is learning from your peers and this melting pot of experiences. And so I definitely prioritized my quant in just so you could see that I had the ability to keep up with the coursework. But beyond that, I focused on what made me different.
Love that. It's really important to think about the intersectionality of yourself, your strengths and transferable skills throughout the application process. So that's really important advice that you just provided, Gabriella and Omar. And I remember Omar coming in for his interview and visit that day. He did come across very nervous, but also very professional and polished as well. And since then, he has grown. He's now a married man. So he has, this MBA program has done so much for him professionally and personally. So kudos to y'all. But would love to hear a little bit more too, like now that you are second year business students, you were taught one way with undergrad and coming from non-business, but how have you adapted to new ways of learning? Do you feel that there were resources and or people that might have helped you better understand a subject better, maybe classmates, tutoring, faculty members, or even programs?
Yeah, I can go ahead and take this off. So in undergrad, like I mentioned, I had a minor in business, but in my opinion, the structure of how that learning takes place is very much like you would see in, your K through 12 learning. Is kind of lecture based, and you do your assignments, and if you get it, you get it. If you don't, try to find someone to help. In coming into the first year, a lot of it is case-based. Like once you get past the core work, obviously you have to get that groundwork of the fundamentals. But once you start getting into the really interesting stuff, the kind of learning that is happening is experiential. You're getting your hands dirty within the subject matter and not being a passive observer of the knowledge. You're actively applying those skills and applying it to solve problems, which I thought was amazing. Like that's how you better encode it into, at least for me, that's how I better encode it into my brain. And then also, last year for us was completely virtual. So I'm not a computer savvy person. So, getting adjusted to that was a whole thing. But I will say the MBA office, the program office did an exceptional job in making it as smooth as possible, from going to the expectation of being in person to shifting gears and going online. We had resources from Canvas to Mike, which is a platform that we use that houses everything, email, and there's multiple people and touch points that you can go to and say, it's like, how do I get this to work? Where do I need to go for this? And the same thing with learning the material, like finance. I will tell you, Cammy's class it's a bear for people that aren't finance involved prior to going to it, but she made herself extremely available. There was tutors, there was other classmates, and we actually have a structure where you have a study group that helps you go along with these core classes. So there's a lot of resources and a lot of safety net to make sure that the first years and second years continue to learn as best they can with the ways that we have.
Yeah, and to add, Omar, you really covered off on that. There's a lot of different styles of teaching. So there's the lecture-based, case-based. That's one of the things I really looked at when I was examining which programs to apply to, because I realized I understood business in the form of the work that I was doing prior, so I understood their business challenges. It was very relatable to me. So I wanted something that had a case base, like a practical application, like here's how I'm going to use these skills in a future job, not just here's the formula, enact the formula. So that was something that was really important to me. So it didn't take that much adapting to, because it feels really intuitive. But finance was definitely a bear. Also, I had no concept of accounting until Mark Lang's class. And so I realized though that I don't need to become an expert in this. I will be a manager of this. And so what is the core information I need in order to be successful in that role? And kind of taking that pressure off yourself, I think allowed me to be more self-aware about where I needed to fill the gaps on, and then identify the right support. So maybe that was, a classmate, a study group member who worked as an accountant prior to business school. I think that's one of the best parts, is there's a ton of people that come from very traditional business backgrounds that like can leverage, like they've done it before. This is second nature to them, that you could have access to. But truly for us, the faculty are really, they have a very open door policy. So multiple study sessions a week, open office hours that you can ask the silly questions. I remember for microeconomics, we, the night before the final, were on Zoom until 10 p.m. Like I think it was supposed to end at 8 and he stayed on 2 hours extra just to like help make sure you felt confident to take the exam. And so having so many people like invested in our success, I think was like the best resource that we had getting through the core.
That's amazing. Shri, your heart must be exploding right now, hearing about the interactions that students are having with faculty. And I know right now, Omar and Gabriella are taking your class. And so as we were talking earlier, hopefully they get extra credit for being here today. But would love your input as a faculty member, weighing in on the rigor of the academic coursework in the MBA program. How do you feel diverse experiences and goals can be an advantage within the classroom?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I didn't realize Gabriella and Omar had all these struggles in microecon and finance because they're thriving in my class, and these kids are amazing. So kudos to the two of them, but they're much too modest. But that's also part of who we are as a school. We pride ourselves being smart, but we don't necessarily be cocky. Going back to the question that Danielle just asked, I think first and foremost is business education. We are an applied discipline. And so our focus is always the rigor that at the end solves a specific managerial problem. And so rigor and relevance is something that we pride ourselves in. Our curriculum reflects that. And being a business profession, a specific solution that fits for a particular industry need not necessarily apply to another industry. And no better way to delineate those sources of differences or see this tension that exists in the same activity across various businesses than to kind of draw on the rich experiences of the students in the classroom. So for example, let me give you a simple example. I teach pricing. So there might be a specific approach that a firm undertakes in software around pricing that need not necessarily carry over to a world of manufacturing. And I can use the experiences of the students in the classroom to kind of share their perspectives and to kind of generate that curiosity among students in the classroom. What works in the US may not necessarily work in India. So I can now draw on experiences of people with global perspectives to create that kind of healthy debate in the classroom. And if I come out and all of us come out having understood varied perspectives on the same topic, I think that makes all of us better future managers. And so I think diversity of experiences and perspectives in the classroom is almost necessary for a business program to thrive. And so we take pride in kind of seeding that in our classrooms.
Excellent, thank you. So back to Gabriella and Omar, would love to hear more on what has surprised you most about the MBA curriculum? And this is probably a funny question, but at the same time, a serious question. But do you think that someone who maybe majored in underwater basket weaving could be successful in this program?
I mean, completely. As there's like some comments in the chat, like the MBA is really the melting pot degree that you can do anything with. And so I think that's part of how the coursework is framed, is that everyone is going to be coming from a different background and picking it up at a different place. And so I was shocked about just how approachable it was. I expected to be, lost and drowning my first couple months. And I'm not going to say I didn't have moments of that, but for the most part, it's taught in a way that's meant to be approachable, and that where it's something that's meant to be learned and you can grow and learn it if you kind of like put yourself to it. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say it was easy by any means, but it really was approachable, and you can relate it to your experiences regardless of what those were.
And just to build off what Gabriella said, it's really meant to build you up from wherever you are coming from. Like I said, I was a leadership major. What that means is that, it's very liberal artsy, Ethics was big. Nothing to do with finance or micro or accounting. Nothing. So the core classes that they instill in you the first year, it really builds on itself. And so you could really kind of come in as a clean slate and learn everything you need to learn in the 2 years. And it's structured that way. And what's most surprising to me is just how it applies to so many different things that you would never even think for it to apply to. And you start to develop this way of thinking that isn't necessarily just to business, but just the logical thought process that you would approach many of your problem sets or your cases. You start to apply that to real life. Like in my personal life, like thinking about the trade-off between going big corporate or consulting and the time spent there, or going to real estate, which is a little more entrepreneurial, and the evaluating the risk and starting to put into a framework of the problem that I'm looking at. And so, I guess all that to say, the most surprising thing is how much this coursework applies to things other than business, whether that's getting married or having kids or moving to Florida or moving to New York or, choosing what your career path is. It's so applicable that it's not just in business.
I mean, Chad, you must be, so excited to hear them talking about the transferable skills that they're learning in the program. And we haven't forgotten about Chad. So he is towards the end of the career search, and the information that we're talking about now will apply to what Chad has to provide later on today. But I'd like to pivot back a little more to Shri and his experience as a faculty member. What makes an MBA student successful in the classroom? And what type of advice would you give applicants with backgrounds that are not strong in quant before they start?
Sure. I think 3 things. It boils down to 3 things: curiosity, creativity, and resilience. That's it. If you have a creative mindset, you're curious, you're intellectually curious, and you're willing to sweat it out, you will thrive. You'll thrive in our program for sure. If you don't have a quant background, worry not. As Omar and Gabriella mentioned, our curriculum is designed in a way that we recognize that everyone has a very different starting point. So when you come in, the core classes are, the goal of these core classes is to get all of us on an equal footing, and then for each of us to pave our own paths while in the program, and then using the program as a stepping board or a stepping stone to whatever career path we choose outside of our program. And so I would say, as long as you're creative and you're willing to sweat it out, you will have all the necessary resources at your disposal to thrive. We make sure that the only reason for one to not be successful is you. Everything else we will pull off for you. And our students, as you can see, with the diversity of experience and backgrounds that people have, Gabriella and Omar included, yes, they're still smiling and they're doing really well in the second year. And so we are committed to making sure that resources are available for students who need additional resources, and for those who don't need the necessary help, we have enough portfolio of challenging courses that can push them even further.
I just want to note that these are not paid actors that we found. These are true Kenan-Flagler students, staff members, and faculty members. And I love that you just noted, stay intellectually curious, be passionately curious about things. And that was really what makes people successful. But to one more thing, Shri, that I'd like to know, and I'm sure many of us on the webinar would like to know, is that many MBA programs train students to become specialists in so many different business fields, like finance, like marketing, executive management, international business. So how do faculty members leverage the coursework in the program to be relatable to so many different industries?
Yeah, I think it comes across in a couple of ways. So one is just the portfolio. We have a portfolio of courses that reflects both depth and breadth. So in which case, if a person wants to pursue a career in general management, they can easily do that by exploring wide. If a person wants to become a specialist, they can look within a specific track. Okay, that's one thing. So the courses that are available to you kind of achieve that objective. The second is within a given course, how do we kind of open people's eyes to slightly different perspectives and interconnectedness across various business functions? And that's done in several ways. One is case discussion. So sometimes when a case is being discussed in a marketing class, an instructor might extend the conversation to say, what might be the supply chain implications of a marketing action, or what might be the finance implications of a specific choice, or what impact might financial regulations have on how we undertake marketing. So the intersection across business functions are things that will show up in a case discussion. Sometimes the exercises might also reflect that. So in a course like mine, I might have a pricing exercise that's specific to a retailing industry, and the next assignment could be something that focuses exclusively on technology, another one that could be focusing exclusively on software industries or manufacturing. And so hopefully by taking a slightly diverse set of industries, we can highlight some of the topical problems within marketing, but also highlight the intersection problems across business functions as well. So I hope that kind of addresses, Danielle, your question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I like to say it's like Noah's Ark. It doesn't matter what happened before the flood, what happens afterwards. And going into an MBA program, you're going to get the breadth of the core curriculum, as Sheree mentioned, and then you're going to get the in-depth knowledge within the concentration and electives that you're able to pursue and hone in on those passion areas to make you successful during your internship and job search. Which brings me over to Chad now. Chad, you're going to be our closer. We have some hard-hitting questions for you about the job search. So as you mentioned, you have decades of experience working with students, and being at the business school, you've worked with students from non-traditional backgrounds that are looking to use their MBA to help pivot into a new career. How can candidates leverage their transferable skills during their career search? And if you have, any examples, generally speaking, would love to hear that.
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing I would say is really take inventory of what those transferable skills are. So even before the program starts, the CNL team does interest assessments and skills assessments. We use the Berkman and Career Leader for those, and all of our coaches are available to go over those sorts of things to kind of get you in the mindset of saying, okay, here are my skills. Here's kind of what path I think I may want to chart out career-wise during the MBA program. Focusing on what you can do is also a big thing, and not so much what you can't do. One of the main reasons you come to the MBA program is to close those skill gaps and learn about those things you can't do. So with the transferable skills and career-wise, talking to employers about it, always talk about the things that you can do and the things that are really marketable. Knowing how those skills are used in the industry and in the role is very important, and that'll come through the company presentations, talking to your classmates, everything that goes into the prep there. I'm sure the students can talk about their star stories and how they've used those multiple times, probably every day in recruiting seasons a lot. But being able to tell your story is important. Being confident about your story is important, and really bringing that kind of executive presence and confidence into those interviews is important. So for example, I work on the tech side, so a lot of people say, well, I want to get into tech, but I don't have a technical background, so I won't even try, which is completely opposite of what tech companies are really looking for at the MBA level. Really top 5 skills that they're looking for are communication between groups, telling a story through data, and it was mentioned before, kind of a growth set creativity mindset, dealing with ambiguity and problem solving are kind of the top 5. So as long as you can show how you have those sorts of things, you can go into that sort of industry. Same thing on the ops side. I work with a lot of students from the military pivoting into the private sector. And a lot of them do want to go into ops, but how do they tell that story about how they moved all this military equipment from one place to another, or did inventory for this? How do those skills transfer into a corporate job or a corporate role that they're looking for? So learning how to do that and being confident about it is important.
That's excellent, Chad. So if, say, I recruited someone that did underwater basket weaving, they would have the opportunity to pivot and maybe to technology with
Absolutely.
no issues. It's all on how they tell their story.
Right, right, exactly.
And you provided great advice too for candidates, yes, on their career search, but it's excellent advice for candidates who are applying to business school when they're writing their essays and thinking about why. These are all the same types of things that we're looking for from an admissions committee perspective. So this advice is very versatile throughout. So Chad, thank you for that. My last question for you is that, what is a common mistake that you see MBA students making as they're recruiting, during the internship and job search? What would you recommend to a candidate in order to optimize their search while they're in the program, or maybe even before the program?
Yeah, I think one thing, in the main thing that I've seen moving from the undergraduate side to the MBA side, is the amount of networking that is needed to be successful in recruiting. A lot of students don't understand that, or if we say it at the beginning of the program, kind of say, oh, I'll do it later. Waiting too long to network, or networking not enough, I see is a common mistake that some students make. Some students think they can do it on them all their own as well, but you have a ton of resources available through the program, whether it be the career and leadership that I work for. The faculty are wonderful in helping you along in the career search. Your fellow students are extremely supportive. I've honestly never been in a more supportive program than this. The students are wonderful with recruiting support and going over interview questions and everything like that. Career clubs are there. Career and leadership mentors are there. The business communication club is there. So there's so many resources that are there for you to kind of help you along, and not taking part in them is a mistake. Kind of more holistically as well, it has been mentioned before about a lot of students that pivot maybe have reservations about, well, should I be in this program, or why did they let me in? Kind of that imposter syndrome comes across a lot. I see it in recruiting as well. So if you get let into the program, you should be here. You can do it. Danielle isn't just letting anybody in. So you should be here, and that same thing goes with careers. You do have those transferable skills. It's just a matter of how you really tell that story. Learning quickly how to balance recruiting and academics is important. I think in Mod 1, that's one of the most important things that you can do. And I'm sure that students have some reflection on that too. One other thing to mention, STAR projects are great for students that are pivoting. It's basically working on a team of undergraduate and graduate students and working on a project for a company, kind of like a little mini consulting project. So a lot of students that are pivoting into a different role or a different industry do find those things extremely important as well.
Great, thanks, Chad. And STAR is student teams achieving results. And students can participate during the time that they're in the MBA program. It's excellent to continue to build your resume and cultivate relationships with companies while you're in the program. So it's absolutely advantageous for you to take advantage of resources and opportunities like STAR, but also clubs. We have career clubs, we have diversity clubs. We are a member school of partner organizations like the Consortium, Forte, MLT, MBA Veterans, Reaching Out MBA. There's diversity conferences that you can attend. So an MBA program is going to give you that breadth and depth, but it's also going to continue to enhance your network and challenge you personally and really to enhance your skill set. So it is extremely versatile to be a part of within the program. You know, I have to honestly say that this has really been an insightful conversation, and we've covered a lot of different topics when it comes to pursuing an MBA without a traditional background. I think I can speak on behalf of the panel that we would love now to hear from the audience and questions that you might have before applying to business school, as we have a couple of minutes left in the session. I know a couple of people have made some comments in the chat box. Albert, thank you. Yes, business school is exciting. We don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk, one heel in front of the other, get it? Our heels. But it is an exciting opportunity for you to take advantage of. So let's see, what questions do we have? A true melting pot of a degree? Yes, absolutely. Let's see, a question came in here from attendee. What would you like to see in an essay for someone who comes from a non-traditional business background? They're currently a registered nurse and wants to pivot into potentially the entertainment and media industry, working with film and consumer products. Their passion is also DEI and wants to take this opportunity to learn something new and provides purpose. Any thoughts and recommendations would be greatly appreciated. Excellent question. So in regards to your application essay question, and speaking solely on UNC Kenan-Flagler, the first essay question that we ask our candidates is all about your career goals. We want to make sure that we can set you up for success. We don't want to see our students fail by any means. And so it's important that you're transparent in providing what you want to do post-MBA. An example I like to provide is, say you're an artist and you love to paint and you want to pursue an MBA because you just want to enhance your skill set and learn oil painting. Well, an MBA wouldn't be the best fit for you. However, if you have that academic and experience in that creative field, and now you want to pursue an MBA to open up your own studio and learn that entrepreneurial side, those are things that we want to help you with, and that's important information to provide in your essay. Just like if you're applying to any other business school, they want to know about you. Don't tell us what you think you want us to hear. Be absolutely clear on your career goals, because again, we want to make sure that we're setting you up for success. And if we don't offer those opportunities, it's going to be myself or another member from the admissions team following up with a phone call, and having that educational and informative conversation with you so that you can understand, maybe why you wouldn't be a good fit here, but here's some other opportunities or maybe other programs that might be a better fit. So it's important to know that relationship goes both ways. And then from a DEI perspective, it's important, our essay question number 2 focuses on that. We've talked a lot about diversity within the program, diversity of backgrounds. It's important to know that it's diversity of thought as well, having all these different experiences, diversity of gender, diversity, geographical location, industry, ethnicity, all of that is important. And so our essay question focuses on that and how you have experienced it. Maybe you haven't experienced it as much. International students may not be exposed to, or everyone has different definitions of diversity. So it's important to share that information and how you would like to potentially get involved, because we're not just looking at how you were involved with it in the past, but how you are going to be able to continue to evolve and be open-minded to becoming an inclusive leader and participating in DEI initiatives at the school. Gabriella is our consortium president, and so she is pushing, the buttons to make sure that students are educated and aware of the opportunities, but also bringing awareness to underrepresented populations in business education and supporting them as well. So truly be authentic. That's the one piece of advice and that I always tell candidates: be authentic, share your career goals and what you want to do in your passions. Great. All right, another question is, how do I effectively tell my story, particularly my short-term post-MBA career goals as an applicant from a non-traditional background? Chad, I'm going to throw this question over to you because you mentioned earlier about being able to tell your own story. And I think this is a great opportunity for you to highlight what recruiters are looking for, because it's going to be very similar to the AdCom as well.
Sure. I think, from a coaching perspective, I would ask, what specific things are you thinking about? So yeah, knowing your goals, identifying those goals, and telling them in a convincing and interesting way. So before I got to the MBA program, I worked a little bit with med school students and students who were applying to med school. And reading those med school essays were awful. So really, if you can, I want to be a doctor because I can help people. No, that's not interesting. The same thing kind of comes with this, is tell it in a really interesting way. So if you want to pivot into another industry, why do you want to do that? Be creative in telling why you want to do that. Show that growth mindset and creativity in that essay. Same thing if you want to close some skill gaps and do that sort of thing, tell it in a really creative way. It's a little bit different writing an essay than talking to an employer. If we coach students on kind of the resume walk, or why do you want to do this or get into this industry, or tell me a little bit about yourself type interview question, that's about a 2 to 2.5 minute answer and a very broad overview. So essays are a little bit different. Students may have a little bit of reflection on that too, just from a little bit different perspective than me.
Yeah. Gabriella, would love to hear how you approached writing the essay, and how you leverage maybe your current background and how you wanted to use those transferable skills in the future into an industry or functional area that you wanted to pursue.
Sure, I'm happy to speak on that. So I really think of it like I'm a collection of experiences. There's like little things along the way that have made me evolve and grow that like led me to like go get a business degree. And I think I did know what my short-term goal, or like long-term, I had this lofty idea that I wanted to be like a chief sustainability officer. And so, but I knew that I needed like management and P&L first. And so I kind of worked my way back towards my short-term career goal. Like, this is where I want to be long-term. So maybe if you want to start your own business, but you know that you're going to need to build up some capital funding first, like you're going to do that. So figure out kind of what your timeline looks like. And then the way that I approached it was like, what were the things that got me to right this point? Like what were, like Danielle mentioned, what were my transferable skills? Why is this the next step? And I also leaned into, for my essay, was like, why does UNC have, like, what about UNC's program is going to give me those exact skills, and so for me that was like the really collaborative culture. There were certain I'm trying to remember all the details, but I remember the Carolina way and that kind of supportive nature, like that was part of what is going to help me be successful in that first short-term goal. And so that was something that I leaned into, of like, not just like how will the business school experience get me to that short-term goal, but like how does Carolina really help empower me towards that next step too.
Excellent. Omar, I'm going to change up the question a little bit, but still stay on topic about how they leverage the essay with their non-traditional background. How did you do it in the interview? Because Chad talked about, telling a story. Gabriella talked about writing the actual essay, but how did you bring that story alive in your interview to showcase your interest in going into real estate? But you had, a background in athletics, you had a background in multiple different areas, similar to Gabriella, like how she said, collection of things. So how did you approach the interview?
Yeah, so to me, it was more about, making it more than just the resume or more than just, I wanted to do this because of X, making it personal for me and, really exploring why I wanted to go back to get my MBA, what the goal was going to be, and, why that goal was worthy, in my opinion. So for me, like I came from, like I said, I was an athlete, I was a football player, and I really appreciated teamwork and working within teams and getting a group of people pointed towards a single goal and driving a team forward to reach that goal. And so like making it more thematic and more personal to why my story made sense to me and why UNC was going to be that. In the interview, it comes across as, I'm just telling you about me and why, me and UNC are going to be a great match. So having that kind of the story outlined sort of the same way as an essay, or having it in your resume, or whatever reasoning you have, making sure you have that story succinct in your own mind and actually believe in the story, because if it's not real to you, it's not going to come off real in the interview. So having that underlying theme of whatever your motivation for going to or coming to UNC is, and make it personal to, it's not just the resume, or not just the what's on your essay, but really making it personal for Omar, or for Danielle, or for Gabriella.
Great, that's great advice. Absolutely, it's important to continue to remain authentic and tell us about you. I think, Sri, you mentioned earlier that Omar and Gabriella are very humble and modest, and that they were hesitant because they didn't have that experience. But now you're seeing them as 1 year later in your pricing class, and they're doing phenomenal because they're able to bridge that gap of skill set that they didn't have, and now that they're in their second year, being able to thrive in your class, and also maybe an OT, your style of teaching too, and being able to relate to them on different topics. There's a lot of conversation about this relatable component, and it's how you relate to things and relate to your future industry and functional area career goals. Amazing. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, but I do appreciate everyone providing questions throughout this session. I just wanted to give a huge thanks. And also I wanted to send a reminder that there is no magic formula when applying to business school. Sometimes it goes a long way to be able to communicate in a compelling way, your sheer grit, your determination, and your understanding of how the MBA can help you achieve your career aspirations. And you really want to showcase that you are ready and willing to put the hard work into being successful in the program and during your job search. I think Chad will appreciate that, because maybe it'll make his job a little bit easier, and also Shree's, because a lot of this is going to be student-centered and student-driven. So we can offer all of these resources to you, but it's up to you to take advantage of those resources and leverage those relationships that you've been able to cultivate during the time that you've been in the MBA program. So many thanks to our panelists who took time out of their busy day to be here. I know today is the last day of mod, gearing up for finals, but I appreciate it significantly. And many thanks to the attendees for joining us today. We hope you walk away informed and feel a little bit better and less nervous about applying to the MBA program. And thank you to our partners at ClearAdmit and Mike for being able to host us as well. So good luck with your applications. Good luck to you, Gabriella and Omar, with finals. And we look forward to reviewing your application soon, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.